Hello everybody and welcome back to the Blossom Crochet channel. If this is your first time visiting my channel, then hi, and my name is Rebecca, and do take a quick minute now just to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell so that you can get notifications of any of my new tutorials. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to do this beautiful granny spike stitch. So it's a really simple one row repeat once you get going, and it's a fantastic project, especially when using lots of different shades like this beautiful rainbow blanket which I have made here. And I've done this using just 2 different yarns, and you can see the effect is really pretty. And yeah, it goes all the way down through all the colours. So it's a really simple project and it's quite quick to work up as well. So for this blanket, for anyone that is wondering, I was using the Mandala Baby yarn in the shade Honeydukes, but I will leave links in the description for where I got mine from anyway. I'll just give you a quick peek because I have one here. So this is the variegated yarn that I used for this project, and then obviously I just used white for my contrast. But the great thing is with this project, and if you're only using 2 different yarns, you will be able to carry your yarns up the side just like I have done here. So if you can see, we've carried up because I've only done 2 rows of each, and so the only ends I had to sew in were my beginning ones and my very end ends, if that makes sense. So I will show you how to carry your yarn as well for if you're just using a couple of colours like I did, but it means that there's hardly any ends, and when I work over this with my border, these carry up loops will be buried within the border as well. So I did the whole of this project, like I say, with the Mandala Baby in shade Honeydukes and white, which was just a colour crafter, and a 4mm hook. And I will leave my starting chain and my measurements in the description box for you. So I just wanted to show you that before we actually started, just so that you could see, get a really good idea of a finished project. Well, I say finished, obviously I haven't done my border, but a pretty much finished project using this beautiful spike stitch. So again, in the tutorial I'm just going to be using 2 shades so that I can show you what to do and also how to carry your yarn. So for the granny spike stitch, you want to complete your foundation row in a multiple of 4. So as wide as you want your project to be, so long as it's a multiple of 4. So obviously yarn over and pull through. 1, 2, 3, 4, and just continue that in multiples of 4 until your project is the width that you need it to be. So I've just done obviously a short chain. I've only done a chain of 28, but this would be good for a nice skinny scarf or something like that. So once you've done your multiples of 4, you need to add 1 additional chain onto the end of that foundation chain. So we're going to work back along our foundation row now, doing granny clusters, and a granny cluster is just a group of 3 treble crochets all in the same chain. So remember, I'm using UK terminology here. In the US these are your double crochets. So we want to find the 5th chain from the hook, so 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So this is our 5th chain because you never count the loop that's on your hook. So for a treble you want to yarn over, insert into that 5th chain, yarn over and pull up. You'll have these 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the final 2 loops. So that is your first UK treble. You now want to put 2 additional trebles into that same chain. So yarn over, back into that same chain, yarn over and pull up, again yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and for our granny cluster we need 1 more treble. So again in that same chain space you'll put a 3rd treble. You then go into chain 1 and we're going to skip 3 chains. So 1, 2, 3, and then your next granny cluster will go into that 4th chain along. So again, granny cluster, so 3 trebles all in that same chain. 1, 2, 3. Again, chain 1, skip 3 chains and a cluster into that 4th chain. So if you want to continue doing your granny cluster of 3 trebles and then chain 1, skip 3 chains and granny cluster, and I will meet you as you get towards the end. Don't get to the very end, just get near the end. So I'm very close to the end now, and in my final chain I'm going to put 2 trebles. So all the others have 3, but in that very final chain just before your slip knot you will just do 2 trebles instead. That's 1 and 2. So that is how you should be looking, but obviously yours will probably be bigger than mine. So to work on for our next row, like I say, I'm going to be changing colour every 2 rows, just like I did in my example blanket, because if you're doing an even number, it means obviously you will meet back every time on this side, which is where your tails will always be for carrying up. So to move on, you want to chain 2 and turn your work around. And we're going to be working straight into this chain space here. Now this is the row that is a little bit fiddly because we're going to be working down into our foundation row. So you do need to keep your tension quite loose when it comes to working your spike stitches so that you don't scrunch up. But once you've got this row out of the way, it's much more simple for the following rows. So you want to do a spike cluster. So you'll do 1 treble into that first chain space, and then you'll do a spike stitch down into the foundation row. So you can see we've got 3 stitches that we skipped, 1, 2 and 3, and you're going to be working in the middle one. So you're going to yarn over, insert into that middle chain, yarn over and pull up, but pull it up tall, don't pull it tight. Make sure you pull up a nice tall stitch, and then complete as normal. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So that is your spike part of your stitch, but then you need to finish off this spike cluster by doing 1 normal treble back into that same chain space where we did the first one. So make sure you pull your work apart to find that gap again and complete your treble. Chain 1 and then jump across that granny cluster and do the exact same thing in this next chain space. So yarn over, do your treble, and then again into that middle chain of the 3 that we skipped, you'll yarn over, insert into that middle chain, yarn over and pull up, again pull up nice and tall and complete your treble. And then 1 final treble again into that same chain space where you did that first treble. Chain 1 and again into your next chain 1 space you'll do a spike cluster, so you'll do treble, spike cluster into the middle of the chains on the foundation row, pull up tall and complete the treble, and then 1 further treble in that same chain 1 space. And you'll work that all the way along, and then I'll meet you as you get towards the other end. And once you get towards your other end, you will have your final granny cluster from the foundation row, and then you'll have this gap with the chains that we skipped at the beginning of that chain. So you're going to put 2 trebles into that space. So don't worry about finding parts of your chains or anything, just go straight into the space and do 2 trebles. If you weren't changing colour, you'd just complete your 2 trebles like so, and then chain 2 and turn and move on. However, I'm going to change colour. So on this very final treble, I'm going to complete it halfway, so I'll yarn over and then pull through 2, and then I've still got these 2 loops on my hook, and I will now grab my other colour. I'll make a loop and I will literally just pull that colour through, and then we're pretty much ready to go again. I'm going to chain 2. I'm just going to pull on that blue just to tighten it up a little and turn. And now I'm ready to work back along. So again, you'll have chained 2 and turned, and you will do a granny spike cluster into this first chain 1 space. So you'll do treble. So it's a bit easier now because we're not working into our foundation row. We're going to be working into the top of the middle treble from this row. So you've got 1, 2, 3 trebles. You want to find the top of the middle one. We're going to go through the whole of the stitch. So you'll yarn over, insert into that middle treble. Again, like I say, go through the whole of the stitch, make sure you've got that V. Yarn over and pull up tall, and complete your treble. And then your other treble goes back into that same chain 1 space. Chain 1, skip across to your next chain 1 space and do your spike granny cluster, so treble, and then your spike stitch into the middle treble, so yarn over into that middle treble, yarn over and pull up and complete, and then 1 treble again. Pull them apart if you need to, just to find that chain 1 space again, and treble and chain 1. So if you complete that all the way along now, you can see with the contrasting colours you're really starting to get the beautiful texture and effect that the spike stitch gives you. So I'll meet you again towards the end of this row. So I've done my final granny spike cluster into that final chain 1 space. I've got my granny cluster and that little gap between the chain 2 from the beginning of the last round, and you'll put 2 trebles into that chain space. So 1 and 2. So there we go. So that is the row that you'll repeat over and over again. I'm going to do 1 final row in this white and then show you how to pull up that blue colour again to carry on. So I'll chain 2, and again I'll be working my spike granny cluster, so treble, spike stitch down into the top of that middle treble, and then a normal treble again. So I'm going to work all the way along. I'm going to go quite quickly because literally I just want to get to the other end to show you how to pick up that original starting colour once more. So again, once you get to the end, you're going to work your final 2 trebles into that space between your cluster and your final chain. So I'll do 1, and then again I'm going to stop halfway through that final treble when I've only got my 2 loops, and I'm going to pick up the blue that is obviously still attached to my working end, and I will literally yarn over and pull that blue through those final 2 through those final stitches. I'll chain 2. I'm going to pull on the white just to tighten that stitch up a little, and then you're ready to turn and carry on that pattern. And you'll do the same after 2 rows or however many you're doing. to pick up the white again, and you'll just end up with these neat little loops all the way up the side of your work, which you'll be able to cover with your border. So hopefully you'll be able to follow that along now. It's, like I said, just that one row repeat, and it's just picking up and dropping your yarn if you're carrying it up the side like I did for mine. And obviously if you're using variegated yarn like I did, there are just hardly any ends to weave in at all, because the colour changes are all done for you. Again, sorry if you could hear that little tip tapping, it's just my dog wandering around the kitchen. But I really hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial for the granny spike stitch, and do remember to also check out the Blossom Crochet Extra channel, which has all of my yarn reviews and finished projects and unboxings, things like that. So if you want to stay up to date with those kind of videos, they won't be on this main channel anymore, they will be on the Blossom Crochet Extra channel. This one is just going to be 99% for tutorials. But that's it for this one, and I will see you again very soon for another tutorial. Bye for now.